Hello, I'm your host, Giselle Gamby, and this is the Intuitive Pull podcast. First of all, I want to say thank you to the community of listeners because there have been breathtaking ripples that have occurred from listening to this podcast, and I'm excited to be witness of many, many more. This year, I'm dedicating this podcast to the theme of 2023 being a breakthrough year. No matter how successful, fulfilled, and happy we are, and the truth is that sometimes we're not, we all have thresholds we've placed on ourselves on how loving and powerful we've allowed ourselves to be. Following the intuitive pull does not negate our vulnerabilities and our humanness. Oftentimes, following the intuitive pull asks us to see our blind spots and to bring what has been in the shadow to light. And when we do, we can see that being fully human is in fact the precursor to remembering that we are infinitely greater than this mortal body, that we are infinitely connected beyond this time and space, not in spite of our humanity, but because of the intricate weaving of all aspects of our precious humanity. When we take responsibility and remember that you have the power to decide what you choose, and we fuse that with a letting go of control and surrendering into the plans that you didn't make, there is nothing that you cannot transform. My wish is that you see that the deeper you go, the greater your wealth in all ways, and that authenticity is always profitable. Have fun! Hello, dear listeners, Intuitive Pull community. I've been really fiery this week. Really fiery. There have been a few things that I've noticed that have really fired me up in the best of ways, in a way that allows me or encourages me to step more into my leadership, into my own sacred power, if you like, in service to you. And today I want to share a message, and the message is that it's more simple than you think. I've had a few conversations this week, not only this week, but in observation of other conversations that I have had, where the process to achieve what we would love becomes so convoluted, so complicated, so delayed, and so out of reach. And I've been there, so I know what it feels like, and it's bloody frustrating. And it's stressful, and it's full of efforting, and it's exhausting. And the results don't come. They don't come with ease. They don't come with joy. They don't come from a place of flow. And so my message to you this week is it's more simple than you think. And in the spirit of that, I want to talk about the power of knowingness and intuition as states of being that produce outcomes and results that are in full alignment with who you are, that are greater than what you could have predicted, and that come with great efficiency and speed. You see, we have been gifted with a connectivity, right? A connectivity to our knowingness and our intuition. And this taps us into our inner wisdom and accesses knowledge beyond our conscious awareness. This is why I continue to remind you over and over and over again how meditation is absolutely necessary. Meditation is not something nice to do. It's not something that you do when you have time. It's not something to bliss out and have no thoughts. It can be that, for sure. But I wouldn't meditate if that's what it was all about, to be blissed out and have no thoughts. It's part of the creative process, but that's the point. It leads us into a creative process where our knowingness and our intuition speaks to us. So let me define knowingness and let me define intuition. I wrote a blog today and I thought I'm not going to assume that people know the difference. I'm going to actually speak to each of these states of being because they are very closely linked. And I'm going to do that here with you now. So think about your knowingness. Think about times when you've been in your knowingness. What does it feel like for you? What does it feel like for you when you're in your knowingness? So when I'm in my inner knowingness, what it feels like for me is that I have this inner knowing and this inner understanding, and I don't actually have any logical reason or even any evidence for it. It just sits inside of my belly. And sometimes when this knowingness comes, I have this feeling of absolute certainty and conviction about something. And again, I'm going to say that I don't actually have any evidence for it. It's not like as if I've had conversations. It's not like as if I've got any history at times. Like I just have this knowingness and this conviction and this certainty about this thing. And I feel it in my belly very much. And it even the fire that has inspired this podcast and inspired my writing today on Substack, the fire, it also exists in my knowingness when I have that certainty and when I have that conviction. And it feels like I have this really strong sense of insight, and it's undeniable. And from a practical point of view, this is the space that I call people into and speak from when I'm coaching. So sometimes I have a knowing about where clients are going to journey to. Sometimes I can feel it in the discovery call. And of course, I can feel it when we're coaching at times. And sometimes I even have that knowingness before I actually get on a discovery call with somebody. It's really cool. Like I tune in and I feel in and I ask myself, do I know anything about this person? And do I know that they are going to coach with me? Even if I don't even know who they are, even if I've got no relationship with this person, in a physical sense, that is. I ask myself, do I feel that I know that they are going to coach with me or not going to coach with me? And I have to say, the accuracy is pretty spot on. So another example of where my knowingness really creates awesome outcomes and is also really efficient and works with speed is when I was on the 9-week, it's funny that I say that, when I was on the 9-week meditation program that I actually facilitated. Well, I actually was a participant of the 9-week program that I facilitated, and I received so much. And one of those things that I received was a new program that I had no idea that I was going to be facilitating. And this program is called Sacred Leadership. It's a graduate program. I've talked about it here on this podcast before. It's a year-long program. And when I received that program, I wrote down about 60 or more names of people that I'd coached over the years. Not everybody that I'd coached over the years, but people that I thought, yeah, this would be cool. This would be cool for them. And then I went back over the list of names over and over again, probably about 3 or 4 times. And I asked, from my knowing, do I know that this person on this list, do I know that this person is meant to be on Sacred Leadership? Do I know? There was about 17 people that I knew were to be on this program. And those 17 people were there in Manly 2 weeks ago at the first 2 days of Sacred Leadership. Now, in full vulnerability, I will state that there were other names that I had written down, maybe about 3 names. And those 3 names were not people that I knew had to be there. They were people that I would dearly have loved for them to be there. But I didn't have the same knowing. And guess what? They weren't there. Of course, right? Of course. That's an example of how knowingness, that conviction and that certainty how I can access that, or I choose to access that as a way of being in my business. And what that means is that I don't do the things that I don't want to do. I don't rely on systems that people believe they need to rely on. And look, I'm not dissing systems. I'm not dissing automated systems, because for sure there are many people who authentically engage with those and who earn, millions of dollars. And that is not who I am. And so I'm not dissing that at all. But what I'm saying, and what I'm asking for you to consider, is when you choose different strategies, are you choosing those strategies because they're your rescuer? They're going to rescue you? Are you choosing those strategies because you think you need to have them? Are you choosing those strategies because they're bright and shiny lights? Are you choosing those strategies because you think that those strategies have the power? And to ask yourself, are these strategies authentic to me? Are they aligned to me? And I guess what I want to say as well is the answer is in the question, is this a strategy? Am I doing this with an agenda to get something? And I know that's a funny thing to say, or to make that, or to ask you to question that, because in business we talk about strategies all the time, and it's encouraged to have them so that you can get this thing, but that's not where I'm coming from. And I'll show you in a minute why. I was also noticing last night, I had the first group call for the sacred leaders last night, and I had tears in my eyes. I should say they brought tears to my eyes when I heard a few people say, the event that I'm putting on has 25 people in it. And I didn't even have to work hard for that to happen. And what I did instead was I really felt in to my knowing about who was up for this. And I felt into my knowing about who were the right mix of people. And I'll just say it again, that this person has received these 25 people, these perfectly matched people, and he didn't do as much work as he normally does. That brought tears to my eyes. Another example last night on the group call was somebody else who said she had some clients cancel out, and there was the thought that went through her head, which was, I need to go and hustle. And then she caught that thought and she said, actually, I'm going to love myself, and I'm going to give myself some time and space. This lady has a lot on in her family and is holding a lot. And she gave herself some time and space. And guess what? That came from her knowing, right? Came from her knowing to self-love. And what happened? New clients came on board anyway. These stories bring tears to my eyes. So the opposite of being in our knowing is being in our head. And I love the statement that when we're in our head, we're dead. And when we're in our head, we're trying to work things out. And hey, I'm going to put my hand up and say, yeah, I go to that place as well. I sure do. I receive something at times from a place of intuition and from knowing. And then I want to go and work it out. But I would say that most recently, I can catch myself when I go to that place. Because when I go to that place of trying to work it out, I lose connection with my knowingness. So I cancel it out. So that's a great piece for me to speak to here on this podcast, that when we try to work things out, we complicate things, we delay things. I had a conversation with somebody I really love this morning, and she said to me, I need to find an angel to help me build the systems I need to get this vision off the ground. And all that I could hear when she said that was delay, delay, delay. is such a great unconscious strategy by the ego to affirm beliefs around limited capacity and not enoughness and needing to control, right? So I just ask you to check in with yourself about the things that you think you need that are outside of you. For sure, sometimes those things outside of you are necessary to the creation, but there's a difference to when it's created from a place of joy and communication and sharing and expression and service, to when we think we need this thing outside of ourselves to get things off the ground. Because when we need things outside of ourselves to get things off the ground, we're giving power to that thing out there. When we give power to that thing out there, where is our knowingness? Where is our power? I think you know the answer to that. So moving on to intuition. Intuition is really similar to knowingness, like it's such a fine line. And it's an inner ability where we access information that is beyond the scope of our conscious awareness, beyond our 5 senses. We access information beyond our identity, beyond our history, beyond our skills, beyond our knowledge, beyond our experience. And we actually access information beyond this physical time and space. We can go backwards in history, we can go forwards in history, we can go into other dimensions. And how it feels, like you have a moment to consider, how does it feel when you're in your intuition? How does it feel? So for me, absolutely, I feel it in the gut. For me, I get tingles on my head. For me, I get tingles throughout my body. Intuition also turns up in my dreams. I had one last night that actually woke me up, and I thought, I've got to remember this. I've got to remember this. It's really cool. And the intuition was, vision comes from our secret intuitions. Isn't that beautiful? Vision comes from our secret intuitions. And what I understood from that statement is that intuitions are sometimes intimate at first. They're secret, right? They're intimate. We have them within ourselves until they are shared. And then when they are shared, then they start to gather life. And I never heard that statement before. Vision comes from our secret intuitions. And I'm so grateful that I heard it in my dream last night and then woke up to remember it. And I'm even more grateful that I actually remembered it. So intuition is different to knowingness, as in intuition is a sense of something. It's an insight. It's an awareness. It's a calling. It's an intuitive pull. It doesn't have that conviction and that certainty as knowingness does. And it certainly doesn't have any how. We don't have the how when intuition arrives. And because we don't have the how, we really have to let go of control. We really have to have faith in that piece of intuition that arrived. And we have to surrender. And Susie de Jong's words are to surrender and surrender and surrender again. And it's in that unfolding that more clarity, more sacred clarity arrives, because we've followed that intuition, we've followed those pulls. And then there's a moment where you can see, oh, that's why that intuition arrived, because this thing is here right now. This new vision or this conversation that I had with this person, or this directive that I've followed, I can see why it arrived. And, I thank God for my intuition. I thank God. It's liquid gold for me. And absolutely, it's my most valuable asset. And, my feeling body is part of that asset. It is an asset, because my feeling body, I said this to somebody yesterday who has a great ability to feel. And I said, it's like your intuitive antenna. So my feeling body is my own intuitive antenna. It's absolutely an asset. There is no way that I would have left my HR career 20 years ago had I not heard from my first son who had passed. Right? Here's an example. Intuition accesses information or accesses relationship with people from beyond this time and space. There is no way I would have left my human resources career 20 years ago if I hadn't heard Joshua's words. You are here to ignite people's spirits and hearts. There is no way. There is no way that I'd be coaching with the authenticity and freedom I have. There is no way that I'd be experiencing such joy of facilitating overseas retreats. I've facilitated in China, Vietnam, Bali, Phuket, Croatia, and Kenya next year for my 5th time, the 14th to the 26th of May. There is no way that I would be experiencing any of that had I not followed my intuition. And also, there is no way that I would be married to my husband had he not listened to his intuition. And that's a story for another time. This podcast, The Intuitive Pull, I want to speak to agenda and strategy here. This podcast, The Intuitive Pull, was never, ever created from a place of strategy, in inverted commas, to win more clients. It never was part of the plan. It never had an agenda. How did it come? Well, I followed some breadcrumbs. And then one day, after I followed those breadcrumbs, my intuition said, create a podcast. And when I had that intuition, create a podcast again, I just need to emphasize it was not in order to win clients. It had no agenda. It was created from a place of direction, from my intuition. It was created from a place of joy and authenticity because I love sharing. And this time, the intuition was saying, use my voice rather than my writing only to share. It was never a lead magnet, in inverted commas. And I'm kind of laughing at that inside of myself. And yet it's created so many ripples. I've spoken about this on previous episodes, so many ripples of more than 350 girls now having sanitary means in the slums of Kenya. A negative cancer diagnosis attributed to one of the episodes that the person listened to. Somebody coming out of suicidal depression because she wrote her thoughts out as she listened to an episode, and then she had the courage to share with me. And yes, I will say that I have also been graced with new clients, and I have been graced with returning clients by listening to this podcast. And all of that was created by following the intuitive pull and by following the intuitive pull consistently. So there are so many stories that I could share with you of, amazing results by clients who have led from their knowing and have followed their intuition. So many examples. Some of them I spoke to previously on this episode. And I felt really, really fired to remind you. Now, I know that some people are well and truly following their intuition and leading from their knowing. And I'm grateful for that. And I celebrate you. And I know that there are people who are not. And people are still trying to work it out with their head. And as I said, when you're in your head, you're dead. And there are so many people I know because that was me. I understand, who believe that it's this thing out there that is going to be the thing that turns everything around, or the person out there who knows the way, who's going to be the reason why they experience the transformation. Now, again, I have experienced so much transformation from wonderful people, wonderful coaches, wonderful teachers that I've been in relationship with. 100%. If we deny our knowing and intuition and we make that thing or that advice or that system or that expert our God, our ego is running the show. It's much more simple than we think. I know this because I did all that shit that I thought I should do. until I remembered, until I reconnected with the sacred creative power of intuition and knowingness. And so I'm reminding you of your own sacred power, of your own sacred creative power of intuition and knowingness. And yes, I will say that sometimes we need to do some cleaning up in order to have that empty vessel, in order to be able to truly listen to what is truly our knowingness and our intuition. And that's also quite a fun experience too, to be able to clean up. And remember, it's not just a fun experience, it's a blessed experience to be able to clean up and remember and reconnect with the truth of who we are. And that is that we are not separate or disconnected or alone. And that is that we are connected beyond this time and space, that we have inherent gifts, that we have the ability to feel and listen and hear and know and intuit information that creates far, far greater results than what our rational mind alone could ever create. I hope my episode today has provoked something in you, and that, you know what I would love as I'm ending this episode? I would love you to go to your knowing right now. In the context of what it is that you would love to create, or in the context of the thing that you're going for, I would love you to go to your knowing. And I would love for your intuition to speak to you right now. And that might be that you pull out a piece of paper and a pen and you ask your knowing and intuition to speak to you right now, directly after listening to this podcast episode. I would really love that. And what I'd love even more than that is for you to experience the speed and the efficiency and the miraculous nature of your inherent creative power, sacred power of your intuition and knowingness. So if that occurs for you, you must, this is the deal, you must let me know what happened. That's the deal. Okay, signing off, over and out. Ciao, ciao. Hey guys, if you love this podcast, I have 2 requests. Number 1, sign up to the newsletter, which you can find in the show notes. Sharing is one of my superpowers, and there is only so much that I can share through the medium of podcasting. And I have very big plans this year to be radically generous to you. So sign up to that newsletter where you'll be able to receive a whole lot more that I trust will be super valuable to you. And number 2, I'm a massive referrer of the people I love to the people I love. Please share this episode or podcast with the people you love, and let's create some more breathtaking ripples of impact.